The coffin ending gives you access to a new option. Begin with memories. But it's not exactly explained what that means. Or at least in the context of the story. You could probably already guess it, but at least for right now, the coffin ending is going to be one giant gaping hole. We can't do anything with it yet. But since we've done it, we can now go back in the story, do a few more rooms. And thinking about it, at some point I'm going to need to get into contact with Oxanon, potentially. Because I want to be able to show the differences between the DS version of 9 Hours, 9 Doors, 9 Persons, and also the Steam version at some point. One of the biggest differences for the Steam version is that the moment you get one ending, you're given all the pathway. You're given like a vague roadmap that you could use to track the other endings down. Within the DS version of the game, you only get that after you 100% the game. There are a few other facets as well. One thing I can say is every single event that we've done in the coffin ending is the route to the game's true ending. But since we're missing information, we have to go back. But yeah, again, at some point I need to get into contact with Oxanon, because if I remember correctly, she has a copy of the Nonary games on PC, and well, one, they're a big fan of 9 Hours, 9 Doors, 9 Persons, and the entirety of the Nonary games, so I figure it might be nice to bring in an expert, if that makes sense. Because in terms of the DS, in terms of, like, the DS version, I know that one pretty well, but I don't know the Steam one all that well. So I figure it might be an interesting thing to bring in a guest, so to speak. It's also something I want to do on occasions with actual LPs too. Like, if it's a game that I know, where I know someone who plays it really well and knows a lot about it, I would like to bring them on to talk about the game, if that makes sense. Part of it is I understand that I'm terrible at doing commentary myself, so I figure with another person I could bounce a few things off of them. And to end with that, I've always been a person that likes to do a whole bunch of research and likes to keep their facts straight. So by having another person on for these types of shows might actually be beneficial in that respect. Specifically just to make sure my information's accurate, and at that, to get another fresh perspective too. Again, I'll remind, in terms of the Nonary games, I have only played this to its entirety, and about half of Virtue's Last Reward. I haven't touched the third game, and I should at some point, but it's mostly getting a point in time to actually do so. I've also heard that the third game is very, very brutal. And in tandem with being very brutal, it also has its moments where it's not as strong of a story, supposedly. Third game is the supposed best, but requires the first two games as a basis. Okay. And hello, Daniel. Hope you're doing well. We saw the coffin. Going to the third with no knowledge of the first two makes it really weak. Yeah, that makes sense. If I remember correctly, part of that reason is because the third game takes a bit of a different approach structure-wise. It's specifically because, like, the first game and the second game feel like consecutive narratives, But the third game is specifically trying to tie up a whole bunch of loose ends, and as a result, it takes a piecemeal structure. There's a legitimate reason for it that's explained in Virtue's Last Reward, which I know about. But just because I know about that reason doesn't mean that it makes the story any more or less consistent when it's self-contained. Hell, like, that type of... The Zero Time Dilemma's approach to storytelling is kind of something I use as well in bits and pieces. Like, telling condensed stories in bits and pieces. Because that's essentially what Zero Time Dilemma is. 3 separate stories, 3 separate timelines that branch off of the first and second games and are relevant to them. Sure, there's an overarching story to it, but even still. It doesn't change the fact that it's 3 separate stories, and as a result, Zero Time Dilemma loses self-contained consistency. Hey kids, you wanna see a dead body? Ah! Zaya! Thanks. Thanks for setting up shop in Synapse. Enjoy your emotes. Yeah, like, one of these days I'll probably play Zero Time Dilemma for myself. I am very hesitant about touching Virtue's Last Reward, specifically because it is super dense. Like, to the point that it takes like 70 to 80 hours, and even then, a good lot of it is at least partially redundant. It's like, I'm not sure if this analogy will actually land or not. I'm not sure how many people have seen the anime Melancholia of Haruhi Suzumiya. Yes, I'm actually making the comparison of Virtue's Last Reward to Endless Eights. And yes, I am a madman that decided to watch the entirety of Endless Eights. And I actually kinda liked it. But at the same rate, with Virtue's Last Reward, it's worse, in my opinion. There is a lot of redundancy and a lot of backtracking that in some cases feels needless, and it leads to at least a partially frustrating experience for me. I burnt out halfway because, well, one, by its nature, these stories are not meant for kids. They are very serious. They are very, very dark. And to end with that, all the repetition also can cause a person to burn out. So I kind of just got a very, very bad mix of things, and as a result, it waylaid me. But anyway, there's a specific reason now that why we're going back to Door 5, even though we've already done a whole bunch of things here. And that is for another ending, believe it or not. There is actually a somewhat good ending that we can get from this. And it involves us taking a very specific path. Much like the coffin ending earlier. Unfortunately, this is gonna involve a lot of Skippy. If I actually had the setup for this, I probably would, like, have a secondary screen just to have something else playing in the background. Something else to catch your interest while I'm doing my backtracking. But unfortunately, I can't, specifically because puzzle rooms. Take up some water. So many died for this water. But I guess while I'm doing my backtracking, I can talk at least about a couple things, right? So, I do have a couple streams planned in the future. Precisely 2 games, if I remember correctly. Actually, maybe even 3. It depends on how events shake up. It depends on what happens when. But regardless, I can probably declassify one of them. I do want to play Don't Starve Together at some point for a stream. There is a reason for it, and because I want to do a Blue Moon thing on that one. I'm not sure at what point I might do it. Probably around Halloween, because, well, let's face it, the game being what it is, it would thematically make sense. Ah! Thanks, Muffin. Yep, a piano puzzle. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, at some point, there will be a Don't Starve Together stream, probably around October, because it makes thematic sense. Oh no, wait, technically there are 3 planned streams coming up in the future. Because there's Don't Starve, the second is Valheim. I left as a thinger up on the Dixort that y'all can vote on whether we did Monhunt World or Valheim yesterday. I still want to do Valheim in the future. And there's a mower outside, god damn it. Kids these days, they won't get off my goddamn lawn! So I have to mow it! That's right, I mow my lawn using the kids! Because you see, back in my day, we didn't have lawn mowers. We ate the grass! A moment to say, don't eat grass, you actually can't digest it. But yeah, Valheim, 2 of the planned streams that are coming up are Valheim at some point, maybe like within a week or 2. Don't Starve Together sometime in October, and there'll be a 3rd stream as well, because Sonic and Amateur Games Expo 2022 is coming up too, and I'm gonna be pitching my hat to that again, so yeah. Just like last year, I'm probably going to be doing the Lowlights show, so that means I'm going to be paying close attention to what people stream in the first couple of days of the expo, tabulate the most popular entries, and not play them. Because I'm a salty bitch like that. No, I'm kidding. No, like, the Sonic Amateur Games Expo is meant to be a thing to celebrate people's hard work with games, and I feel like only streaming the absolute most popular games defeats the purpose of the expo. I'm strange in that respect. But my idea was well received last year, so I figure, hey, let's keep doing that. As for when that stream will be, by the look of it, the expo is happening September 2nd to the 9th. So that means I'm probably going to be taking either a Saturday or a Sunday slot on that one. I think I did ask for a day off around Labor Day, and I think that applies to the day before Labor Day for one reason or another. So chances are it might be the Sunday slot, or otherwise if I'm going to be doing Saturday, then it's probably going to be in the morning. The one downside to it, though, is that stream will only go for like 2, if not 3 hours, because limited programming. But regardless, I do have a few games that I'm looking forward to trying when the expo actually surfaces. I have contact with at least a few indie devs that want to show their hands in Sage 2022. Some of them are projects I've already covered in the past, like, say, Havoc Fox. But there are also others, like Vang Gems, which the creator that I talk with on occasions, they originally want to have their entry in 2021, but decided, yeah, no, I haven't done nearly enough for this year, so I'm gonna delay. And that's honestly the best decision. They're working diligently on their project. I want to see what it looks like. And at that, you can find a whole lot of interesting upcoming indie projects within Sage 2, and that's also really nice. I get it, the acronym, more often than not, tends to glom to people's heads as Sonic fan games, but the acronym is actually Sonic and Amateur Games Expo. It's not just Sonic fan games, but also people's first indie projects, or maybe even second or third indie projects. And you can find some really interesting games if you look closely in the expo. Case in point, last year, I was really impressed by... Shoot, I'm trying to remember the specific game. Like, I can remember what it looks like, but the name of it escapes me. It was like, this side-scroller Danmaku type thing with, like, a really nice appeal. Ape Escape. Yes, Ape Escape. This is gonna bug me, I need to look it up. Yeah, there was Endwave. There was the Endwave project, which also is coming along really well. Voids and Vessels was a cool little project. Was a cool little experiment. There we go! Now I remember. Typhoon Unit. I may or may not like an occasional Danmaku, and Typhoon Unit really blew me out of the water, because the artwork is so buttery smooth. At that, the gameplay is pretty good, too. It's very much a game of, hey, are you paying attention? By the way, every character's got their strengths and weaknesses. If you're not constantly switching characters, you're playing the game wrong. Or trying to challenge yourself, like I do. I can't help it, okay? It's satisfying being able to break bullets with a short-range fire breath attack. Chances are, when that project finally releases, I might, like, do a dedicated stream for it, because I really, really enjoyed it. Hell, I have similar plans for Havoc Fox, Shield Cat, Starbuster as well, when those finally release. I want to do dedicated game clearing for all 3 of those. Alright. Now with this, we're going into a new room. His bracelet gave a cold electronic beep. 81 seconds! Hurry! Lotus snapped at him and ran to the dead. Junpei and Clover followed her as fast as they could. Right, I should also plug Daniel's little project. Is it Daniel's little project too? If you like puzzle games, then check out Zups. It's really fun. She muttered to herself without emotion, walked down the hallway, leaving behind a confused Junpei and Lotus. Lotus watched the girls receding back with a mix of frustration and curiosity. What an unpleasant girl. I bet she's not very popular with the boys. Her sarcasm seemed a little more biting than was perhaps necessary, but she sighed, went after her. After taking a moment to catch his breath, Junpei followed. Oh, right! It's this room! We're gonna enjoy this room. The hallway made a number of turns before at last coming to a dead end. Set into the wall on the left side was a large iron door. For a few minutes, they stood in front of the door and examined it. Above the door was a plate with the word Labrador engraved on it. A Labrador, huh? That sounds like it's going to be very barky. I don't like the look of this place. Me either, but there aren't any other doors. It's either Labrador or no door. Junpei? That was a terrible joke, and for that, you go first. Junpei suspected her politeness was motivated by something other than respect. Pfft. Junpei muttered to himself, pushed open the door. Why am I snarky? His first steps inside were tentative, careful, but as he examined the room, it became clear there was no imminent danger. Lotus followed him in, and Clover brought up the rear. The room they found themselves in was divided into 2 separate areas by a curved wall. A glass window built into the wall made it possible to see into the other side of the division. Junpei walked to the window and looked through. The hell? He wasn't sure what to say. In the center of a room, shaped like a quarter circle, a mannequin lay on what looked like a medical table. Creepy. Junpei jumped a little. He hadn't noticed Lotus come up next to him. You don't think that thing is gonna suddenly sit up, do you? I don't know. I mean, look at all those cables sticking out of it. If we press the wrong button, no. Stop it. Just thinking about it's terrifying. She was gripping her arms, the knuckles on her hands white. It was then that Junpei noticed Clover, still standing near the entrance. Her face had the appearance of calm, but it was drawn. Somehow sad. There was something almost pitiful about her. Junpei walked over to her, and, as kindly as he could, spoke. You okay? She looked away. What are you talking about? I'm worried. You've been quiet. What, I can't be quiet if I want to? I mean, of course you can, just... Okay, if I can be quiet if I want, just leave me alone. I can't exactly do that. We need to work together. Clover bit her lip and was silent for a moment.
Junpei, you don't get it.
Junpei was caught by surprise and stumbled back a few steps.
My brother's not the kind of person who'd just leave me behind. Something happened to him. Something bad.
Junpei had nothing to say. Lotus, jolted from her mannequin nightmares by Clover's voice, turned to them. What happened? Clover's eyes slid to Lotus, then back to Junpei.
Look, just don't bother me. Leave me alone.
Before either of them could say anything, Clover began to walk away. Hey, wait! Hold on! He might as well have been talking to a wall, for all the notice she took of his cries. Not even slowing down, she made for a doorway cut in the wall in front of her. Without even slowing down, she passed through and... An iron gate fell from the ceiling, sealing Clover in.
What the hell? What's going on?
Clover grabbed the iron bars, shook them as hard as she could. Hang on! I'll get it open! Junpei grabbed and pulled. In a moment, Lotus joined them. The three pulled as hard as they could, but... Damn it, it's not moving!
Wait, are you just gonna give up like that?
Hell no! This has gotta be another one of Zero's puzzles. If it is, there needs to be a way to open it. Junpei nodded. Exactly what I was thinking. Now we just gotta find it. Lotus and I can look around here. Clover, you're gonna have to see if you can find anything in there.
I'm on it.
There are 4 lights. And we need to seek a way out. This is the Labrador. It's gonna be full of a few unique puzzles. There's a lot of stuff here. I don't know, we could use any of it all. Well, I could say for certain I know how to use at least one of these things. Which one? The one on top. It's a power cable. Okay, I'll take that. I think this thing's supposed to power that machine in the other room. It doesn't appear to be doing that. I wonder how we're supposed to turn it on. Maybe a key? Whole bunch of steel lockers. The 9 on the right have red lights. Well, can't hurt to give them a shot. Yeah, they're locked. I wonder if there's anything important in there. Alright, let's just slip you in. Shoot, can't use this. What's wrong? The cable has 3 prongs, but the socket only has 2. It's not gonna fit. In other words, we're gonna need a plug to charge the power cable to change the power cable to 2-prong. And that is why this window is important. Okay, maybe not that window. This window. From here, we can direct Clover to do things on her side.
This thing here looks like a voltmeter. Is this the control? There's so many dials.
Turn 1.
Nothing. There's no power. I turned a whole bunch, but even if I turn all the switches on, nothing happens. I know what kind of table this is, but part of it's all black. And there's a pen here, too. Somebody probably used it to make the table black.
Well, if they only use the pen on one part, maybe there's something underneath it? Clover, do you think you can erase it?
Yeah, sure. Oh, it's indelible marker. You know how to erase ink from an indelible marker?
No. It's permanent for a reason, isn't it?
Somebody cut the outer stuff on the cables. I could see wires. I wonder what they washed here. Weird colored stains on the sink.
There are 2 levers. Maybe they activate something. Nope, nothing. Okay, so we need to find a key. We need to find a converter. And ethanol. Wonder if this is for antiseptis. Oh, anhydrous ethanol. Anhydrous? Is that different from regular ethanol? Come on, that's common knowledge. Anhydrous is a powerful cleaner. It can erase marks even left by permanent marker. If I remember correctly, anhydrous means that it lacks water, so that means it's much more concentrated. Hey, Clover, use this ethanol. You should be able to wipe off that ink with it.
What am I gonna wipe with?
Your sleeve? I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Just don't look at me like that, you're scaring me. Can you use the cloth on the table?
Use, huh? Okay, soak it in the ethanol. Use it to wash off that marker. Okay, so soak it with ethanol.
She's got the cloth, but she seems to be having a little trouble with the bottle. I guess when she's ready, I should ask her to get to work on that table.
It's working! It's wiping it off! There's some kind of weird drawing. What's the deal with...
What's the deal with that drawing Clover found? Maybe I should ask her to take another look at the table.
A bunch of numbers in some kind of grid.
I can't see it from here. Clover, you got a pen and a notebook, right? Could you write it down? Hand it to me through the bars?
Roger. Here. I wrote down all the numbers from the desk.
We'll get to that eventually. But first... Hey, Clover, how are the power cables over there?
Huh? What do you mean?
Does the plug have 3 prongs or 2?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she does have to kind of crouch to get a look under there.
The cable has 2 of those little metal things. What does that mean?
Perfect. Can you unplug that cable? Bring it over here?
Okay, but,
What?
well, I can unplug it, but it's connected to the main computer. I can't take it over.
That's no good.
How about just the plug?
What?
The plug? Maybe more like a connector? It's a sort of thing that makes the plug with 3 into 2. Still useless?
No, that's actually quite the opposite. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Okay, hold on a little bit. Alright, unplugged. I'll hand it over at the bars. Here.
Thanks. And with that, we've got a converted plug, which we can use at this computer. I'm pretty sure this will work. Under the desk I go. Alright, that ought to do it. Alright, let's flip the power. I don't think anything's gonna happen. And why not? It's not connected to the main computer. You never know until you try. Pretty optimistic. Huh? Junpei pushed the button on the front of the monitor. With a soft hum, it turned on. Streams of letters that made no sense to Junpei scrolled across the screen. He'd hoped it would turn on, but he hadn't expected this. It's working? So it would seem. Isn't that kind of weird? What? It's not connected to the main computer, isn't it? there's just this keyboard and a monitor. The only cable connected to this thing is the power cable we plugged in. Why is it working? Maybe it's a wireless display. Clearly this was a reasonable explanation to Lotus. A wireless display. Yeah, it connects to your computer wirelessly. Hence the name. You've been living in a cave, Junpei? You most certainly hadn't been, but... is that normal? At least where I worked. As they spoke, the lines of letters stopped and disappeared. All that was left was the word pass, followed by a colon. Looks like we need some ass wine for this colon. I mean, a password for this colon. Again, there must be a hint somewhere around here, I guess. Could you go take a look? Aye. What are you gonna do? I'll see if I can do something about this on my own. On your own? Yep, on my own. Lotus pulled over the nearest chair, dropped herself down into it, in front of the keyboard. For a second, she stared at the screen, then... she kneaded her hands, knuckles popping, twisted her back left, right. Alright, let's kick some ass. Before Junpei had time to blink, she was typing at an incredible speed. Click-clack of keys running together like machine gun fire. What? Junpei was for once at a loss for words. Didn't expect that, did you? No? What kind of job do you have? What are you? Unemployed at the moment. I used to work for a cybersecurity firm, but I, quit. Why? Huh? Oh, it was just... something. She stopped typing for a moment, and her face fell. This wasn't an avenue of questioning to be pursued, Junpei realized, and quickly shut his mouth. Lotus's fingers moved again, and in a few seconds, she was back up to speed. As she typed, more and more letters and symbols that meant nothing to Junpei poured across the screen. What are you doing? I'm gonna try and brute force it. What? A brute force attack is, well, the short version is, I just attack the thing head on. The long version... Without looking up or slowing down, she began to explain. It's one of the simplest ways to break a cipher. It checks every possible combination until it finds the right one. For a complex cipher, this can take a while. The thought of doing something like that made Junpei feel tired, but Lotus continued explaining. What I'm trying to write is a program that would run just such an attack on its own. Try a whole bunch of various combinations, rapid fire, and give some results. It's not the most elegant solution, certainly, but given the circumstances, there isn't much I can do. Junpei couldn't help but feel a little awed. But back to what we were talking about earlier. What were we talking about again? The wireless display. It's kind of strange if you think about it, no? How do I put it? Well, let's say you write a program that calculates an addition problem for you, alright? So you enter 1 plus 1. The screen will show you 2. See? Isn't that strange? No, not really? Oh, come on. Of course it came from a man like you would think it was strange. You said so just a moment ago. You're just not getting it, are you? Who calculated 1 plus 1? The computer, didn't it? You said it's connected to the monitor wirelessly. But someone who grew up in a cave wouldn't know that, would it? They'd probably think this thing here, the monitor, did the calculating. Once they decided that, they'll start examining the monitor. They might poke the screen or something. Ah, I see. The color changes when I press it here. Then they might investigate the hardware on the inside. Ah, I see. So this wire supplies power. Eventually, they might even cut the wires. Oh yes, just as I had suspected. When this wire is cut, no results appear. Therefore, it must be this device which does the calculations. But the truth is, like you said, the computer is doing the calculating. But the cave people wouldn't know that. They have no idea the monitor and the computer are connected wirelessly. Lotus continued typing. Junpei scratched his head. So, what are you trying to say? Nothing, really. It's just, I thought maybe... What if the relationship between human beings and our brains was like that? Well, let's say you stick a bunch of electrodes into parts of the brain. A scientist examining the signals they send out might say, "Interesting. So simulating this part of the brain causes this person to see color. That must mean this neuron cluster controls that function. Okay, let's see what happens when I cut out this part. Ah, just what I thought. Cutting it out means the function ceases. Therefore, human thought processes must occur in the human brain." You get it? It's like this monitor. There is actually a basis to that. It has been done with, like, other animals like lab rats and similar, where cutting out parts of their brain will actually drastically reduce their functioning in certain ways. They can recover, because it's not necessarily that one specific section of the brain is in charge of one specific function, so much as most of the function is within that part of the brain, but there are still vague neurons here and there and everywhere that still have some influence on it, if that makes sense. So, suppose you were to cut out a part of a rat's brain that could allow them to see. It wouldn't necessarily make them blind, just unable to process what they've seen, if that makes sense. Maybe the brain is just like an output device. Maybe our thought processes actually occur somewhere else in a main body. We just don't know it. We never even think about it. Just like those cave people who wouldn't know about wireless communications. We can't imagine that there is some unknown medium that transfers information into our brains when we experience that information as thoughts. Junpei stayed silent. Not so much because he had no retort, but her argument just seemed silly. He was a little surprised to be hearing something like it from someone like her. The brain is just an output device? Human thought occurs somewhere else? Did Lotus really think that? It was a little creepy. It sounded altogether too much like a bizarre, cultish religion. Maybe that's the cause of Seven's amnesia. Bum brain. Yeah, exactly. The brain processes a butt. Ah, I see. This is a butt. Oblivious to Junpei's increasing discomfort, Lotus continued. If memory is actually stored somewhere else, in a sort of main body, somewhere, maybe he hasn't forgotten anything at all. He's just having a difficult time accessing his memories because the monitor, his brain, has been damaged. That is actually how, most types of amnesia work. Some type of trauma inflicted to the brain causes a connection to break or causes cells to die, and as a result, connections to certain memories fade off until that connection is reestablished. The average lifespan of a neuron, if I remember correctly, is anywhere from 3 to 8 years. I might be wrong on that one, so feel free to look that up. But regardless, the point of the matter is, if the brain ever suffers damage, it takes a very, very, very long time to recover. And in some cases, it may never recover whatsoever. There are at least a few different types of amnesia, if I remember correctly. There's a type of amnesia where everything does get logged in the brain, but you simply don't have the means to access it at all. There's another type of amnesia where you know information is coming in, but you simply don't process it whatsoever. And so on and so forth. It's interesting. I suppose that would explain aphasias and blindsight, too. Perhaps they actually... sorry. I should probably sip at some point. Perhaps they can actually speak or see. The monitor just isn't functioning properly. Again, this is also a thing that exists. Blindsight is a phenomena where a person is considered blind, but in actuality, it's simply the fact that they can't process the information. It's like light goes into the eyeball, it goes through some of the neurons, but it doesn't get to the part of the brain where they process the actual light and patterns and colors and synesthesia. I guess people with prosopagnosia could be suffering from the same thing. Wait a minute, what? You know what aphasia was from watching medical dramas on TV. Blindsight was easy enough to guess, but prosopagnosia was a new one. Remember something similar as a trick where the periphery vision fails. Yeah! I think you might be on the right track on that one. What, never heard of prosopagnosia? It's like focusing on one image, tilting the eyes to look at the other small image, and the first disappears. Yeah, that is similar. I'm trying to remember it too. I know I've heard of it. I kind of want to look it up now. But I also have a show to run, so let's just continue with the prosopagnosia. Lotus spun around in her chair to look at him. Junpei just shrugged, shook his head. Nope. What is it? Well, put simply, it means a condition where the mind can't distinguish between human faces. In other words, my face would look the same as Clover's, or even yours. So they can't remember faces, which is how most people recognize each other. That means people with prosopagnosia have trouble recognizing even people they're close to. Usually they can make do by associating people with other things, their voices, their clothes, their hair. Does that mean other people's faces look like blanks? This one's a sticky one. I'm actually kind of curious what a person with prosopagnosia actually processes. I have a feeling that they can technically see the face, like, perfectly fine, but they simply just can't remember it, if that makes sense. Because the idea with prosopagnosia is that some part of the human brain that's responsible for recognizing, yes, this is a human, essentially cannot receive that specific type of input. And I think there was also some type of study involving prosopagnosia and revolving around the nose. I might be misremembering. That one I might actually want to look up. I don't want to give misinformation. Let's see. I did find one study just now on PubMed. Let's see. To contribute to the limited body of eye movement studies of children and family members with congenital prosopagnosia, a task requiring a verbal response for the identification of personally familiar faces was used for the first time. Poor spatial temporal distribution of fixation on the eyes and rare first fixations on the eyes. So essentially, what this is reasoning is a person with congenital or natural prosopagnosia just simply lacks the ability to recognize a person's... Because they fail to recognize a person's face, they give less contact to the person. They look at the person less in the eyes and the nose and whatnot, and just look in their direction instead. No, I don't think so. You've seen monkeys, like in a zoo, right? To you and me, all the monkey faces look the same. Even though they've obviously got faces, it's almost impossible for a human to distinguish between them. The zoo staff that works with them would learn to identify different monkeys eventually, but you or I couldn't, unless one had a scar or something else to set it apart. That's how people would be to someone with prosopagnosia. Didn't even know that kind of thing existed. There are other types of agnosia, too. Like, agnosia itself just refers to an inability to process something. Meanwhile, aphasia is more caused by damage and refers to a lack of the ability to communicate. What were we talking about? The idea that your brain is an output device, like a monitor. You serious about that stuff? Not really. I was kidding for about half of it. What about the other half? Well, I guess I was just adulting? Not funny. That was a nice pun. Lotus's smile had something rather masochistic to it. It's nothing more than a story I made up out of boredom. Don't take it seriously. It was the first thing that came to mind. I just talked about it to kill time, but it looks like I don't need to talk anymore. How come? I don't have to kill time. Boop. The program took only seconds to analyze the system. Chunks of text flickered on and off in quick succession, and a line of numbers appeared, blinked, disappeared. The screen cleared, and all that was left was the word accepted. Piece of cake. Lotus would have patted herself on the back if it wouldn't have made her look ridiculous. After a few seconds, the accepted disappeared to be replaced with... lights out. The hell? No idea. Looks like a puzzle. Lotus stood up. Aren't you gonna, do more computer stuff? I can't. It won't let me do any more programming. See, the keyboard? Nothing. There's nothing more I can do. I guess I'll leave this to you then, Junpei. What? Let me take a break, alright? I did my part. He wasn't sure what to say. She certainly lacks a shirt. She certainly had done her part. In fact, without Lotus, this probably would have run completely aground. I shouldn't rely on other people so much, Junpei thought to himself. But from here on out, he would rely on no one else. He crossed his arms, stared at the puzzle.